The poet Maggie Smith writes, "Life is short, though I keep this from my children. Life is short, and I've shortened mine in 1,000 delicious, ill-advised ways. 1,000 deliciously ill-advised ways I'll keep from my children. The world is at least 50% terrible, and that's a conservative estimate, though I keep this from my children. For every bird, there is a stone thrown at a bird. Life is short, and the world is at least half terrible, and for every kind stranger, there is one who would break you, though I keep this from my children. I am trying to sell them the world. Any decent realtor walking you through a place chirps on about good bones. This place could be beautiful, right? You could make this place beautiful." In my mid-20s, I restored an old house from the mid-1800s on the south side of Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. It was a bigger job than I ever imagined it would be. I can't believe that I survived it. But when it was all done, it was a beautiful home, an accomplishment, something to be proud of and something to be enjoyed. Years later, when I moved to the DC region to serve here at Church in Bethesda, we needed some restorative work done here at the church. And a member of our church that we call by the name of Sully was so kind to oversee the entire project. It would have never happened without his efforts, but I'm also sure that he would agree that he can't believe he survived that project either. But now that it's all done, this place, this church, this beautiful home is even more beautiful. An accomplishment. Something to be proud of and something to be enjoyed. What about you? Have you ever done any kind of restorative work in your home or in your apartment? If so, you know that it is always like this. A messy blend of dreaming and doing and wanting and working. It is never perfect, ever. The plan that you start with always gets modified along the way. There are long hours, there are arguments and concessions, and yes, there are sometimes even injuries, hopefully not deliberate ones. And the workers at businesses like Home Depot and Ace Hardware become almost as close as your immediate family. It's all part of the noble work that is restoration. The theme in our passage today from the book of Isaiah is the same theme, the theme of restoration. But rather than the restoration of a man-made structure, the passage is talking about the restoration of the world and everything in it, and all the enjoyable and not so enjoyable parts of the restorative process are included. The passage reads, "The desert and the parched land will be glad. The wilderness will rejoice and blossom. Like the crocus, it will burst into bloom. It will rejoice greatly and shout for joy. Glory will be given to it. People will see the glory of the Lord, the splendor of our God. Strengthen the feeble hands, steady the knees that give way. Say to those with fearful hearts, be strong and do not fear. Your God will come. He will come with vengeance. With divine retribution, he will come to save you. Then will the eyes of the blind be open, and the ears of the deaf unstopped. Then will the lame leap like a deer, and the mute tongue shout for joy. Water will gush forth in the wilderness, and streams in the desert. The burning sand will become a pool, the thirsty ground bubbling springs. In the haunts where jackals once lay, grass and reeds and papyrus will grow. That is a beautiful passage, one that I always enjoy reading. That is the kind of world that we all long to live in, and hopefully we will one day. But bringing about that kind of world comes with a caveat. I really love verses 1, 2, 5, 6, and 7. I really want to keep those verses, but I want to throw out the rest. Why? Well, because the remaining verses 3 and 4, talk about the difficult parts of restoration, but also the necessary parts of restoration. Things that are required of us, not only to begin, but to complete the restorative process. Verses 3 and 4 remind us that restoration takes a lot of work, that it's scary, that there are moments of anger and tension, and that we will get tired and we will want to give up somewhere along the way. This passage is trying to teach us that wanting restoration is good. Wanting, dreaming about it is where it begins. But eventually we must come to a point where we realize that if we want to see restoration happen, we have to do something about it. There's some hard work to be done. Each week on this broadcast, I ask you to write something down that you can take with you into the coming week. And here's what I'd like you to write down today. Dreaming without doing is drifting. Dreaming without doing is drifting. We want a better world. We want better lives. We want so many good things that we carry around in good hearts. But if we're not careful, that is where it will end. In the dreaming, in the wanting. And so the question becomes, is what we want something we are willing to work toward? And it's okay if our answer to this question is yes. It's also okay if our answer to this question is no, because yes and no at the very least bring us to a conclusion. But saying maybe gets us nowhere. It only causes us to drift indefinitely. On September 12 of 1962, some of you watching this might even remember when this happened. President John F. Kennedy delivered a speech at Rice University about our nation doing something that had never been done before. He told us that we were going to land people on the moon. And this is what he said in that speech. We choose to go to the moon. We choose to go to the moon in this decade and do the other things, not because they are easy, but because they are hard. Because that goal will serve to organize and measure the best of our energies and skills. Because that challenge is one that we are willing to accept, one that we are unwilling to postpone, and one we intend to win. And we did exactly that. We went to the moon. And it was very messy. It didn't go as we planned. We had to improvise countless times. We made modifications and mistakes along the way. But we worked diligently and tirelessly with that end goal in mind. Going to the moon asked things of us that had never been done before, but we did them anyway. We didn't just dream them. We dreamed them and we did them. And that's why we got there. For the sake of humor, though, today, just to show you the contrast, imagine, if you will, Kennedy's speech sounding something more like this. We might decide to go to the moon. Maybe, who knows? It could happen. If we decide to go to the moon in this decade and do the other things, fine, but they are hard. And the challenge is one that we might not be willing to accept or postpone indefinitely. So it may or may not happen. We'll see. That would be terrible if he said it that way, wouldn't it? Why? Because anyone hearing that would know we're not going to the moon. This is never going to happen. This is just in the phase of ideas and dreams and wants. But this is how we are too often in the work of bringing about restoration in the world. Where do you want to see restoration in your life today? In your family, in your friendships, in your relationships, in our society, our culture, our world? Whether it's something material or spiritual or emotional or otherwise, the work of restoration is always the same. It is, well, dreaming followed by doing. Wanting followed by hard work. So may we live our lives doing the things that stretch us, just the right amount. The things that call to the best in us as we embrace reality head on. We don't have to perform miracles. That need not be the goal. We so easily undervalue what can be accomplished in this world. By setting simple, attainable goals, we are able and willing to work toward. Because on a long enough timeline, it's the small, unimpressive things that add up. It's good to want to change the world. It's good to go to the moon. It's good to want to colonize Mars. It's good to see an image of an old home in our mind fully restored. But there are a billion unsexy little ways that make that end reality a reality. They're often boring and at times even unpleasant. What's more is that getting there involves partnership and teamwork and collaboration with others. Nothing great is ever accomplished entirely on our own. The little things, compounded, end up being the great big things. This is what Jesus meant when he said, "You have been faithful with the small things. Now I will trust you with even bigger things." Life is short. I keep this from my children. Life is short, and I've shortened mine in 1,000 delicious, ill-advised ways. 1,000 deliciously ill-advised ways I'll keep from my children. The world is at least 50% terrible, and that's a conservative estimate, though I keep this from my children. For every bird, there is a stone thrown at a bird. Life is short, and the world is at least half terrible. And for every kind stranger, there is one who would break you, though I keep this from my children. I'm trying to sell them the world. Any decent realtor walking you through a place chirps about good bones. This place could be beautiful, right? You could make this place beautiful. As we spend a few moments now in stillness and reflection about this topic here today. Restoration and the work of bringing about restoration. I want to invite you to just take all of these words into your heart and let them take whatever shape they will in you, uniquely you. We also invite you to receive the Eucharist with us at this time. While we put some music on, you can gather the elements. If you don't happen to have unleavened bread and wine in your home, whatever you have available is sufficient. But let's spend a few moments thinking about the restoration of God, trying to get into the world and out into the world and at work in the world through us.